Welcome to the Global Indian Podcast, the world's greatest journey and the official platform for people of Indian origin. Because let's face it, we are everywhere. My name is Rajan Nazran, and on our weekly show, we plunge into the human experience of being a person of Indian origin, take a closer look at the countries we now call home, and tackle the issues you need to know more about. This is the world's greatest journey that will ultimately change the way you see the notion of Indianness to be, and importantly, our connection to each other. Every week, the team and I are joined by our guests, where we have open conversations about the 50 shades of brown that is our experience, and take a closer look at the issues close to their hearts. In this episode, I'm incredibly fortunate not to have to travel anywhere. For a change, I'll be staying at home in the provision of my beautiful home, and I am going to be joined by my wonderful partner in crime. Yes, that is not just my wife, Divya and Nazran, but also, importantly, the brains behind the whole operation of the Global Indian series. Yes, you can smile there, good. Okay. And the reason why we're doing this, so we had an email quite recently from Thailand, from all places, and one of the questions that we were asked was, what's it like to travel? And what impact has that had on our lives? And I thought, well, it's a great question to answer, but it's not just me. Obviously, it's yourself as well. Yeah. So I thought, okay, this would be a great opportunity to talk about some of our experiences. So plunging into our human experience of being a person of Indian origin and seeing how it shaped our lives. So stay tuned because I think you're going to be in for a massive treat.
And just move. Get up 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 and just.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
This time you're not just listening in, you're participating in. How does it feel to be on the other side of the microphone?
Odd with the microphone, because normally I'd just be talking to you. But with the microphone it's slightly different.
Good. So I suppose, looking back at it all, with the email, it was interesting having the email because you reminisce, you look back at those incredible times. It still is incredible times, these experiences. But then the crux of it is how has travel changed us? And how has it shifted our perspective of culture, identity, and the idea of Indianness? Because we both, before we met, we had travelled a small amount. Obviously, I was doing a lot of the Middle East side of the world. We got married, and even our marriage was an ode to the global Indian. We had both we got married in India. So
yeah, we married in Goa. Nice beach wedding.
Nice beach wedding. Small wedding for Indian standards.
Yeah, 130 people.
So probably just a bit smaller than a COVID wedding, I guess. And it was a great thing because it was a unionship of cultures. Obviously, we had the Indian side from family members on your side. We had the Indian Filipino roots on our side with the karaoke singing on the beaches. And then we moved to Africa. We moved to Malawi.
Yeah.
Pretty much shortly after that, we swapped our final luxury items such as a dishwasher and
a washing machine.
And a washing machine to take you to Malawi. In all fairness, Malawi is very well developed, but the first place that we went to, we were washing our clothes in a
bathtub.
Yeah.
That's definitely something I will never forget. But if I was to put it in perspective, growing up, I grew up in Kent with my mum, my dad, my sister, and it was wonderful. But travel wasn't ever seen to be one of those things that's a must do. Oh my God, you have to travel the world. It was definitely something that I'd probably say in passing, but whether or not I'd actually have the guts to do it is another thing. And my aunt actually lived in Spain for many years and then Dubai, and I often used to look at her life thinking, wow, how does she do it? And she's all alone as well, but she did it and she loved it. But again, I didn't necessarily muster up the courage to do it myself until I was asked to go to Australia for a couple of months back then in a previous job, and it was amazing, but I was a bit homesick, and coming back again, it just stopped. And I think the inspiration and the kind of desire to continue traveling occurred when I met you. And you had all these countries under your belt that you had visited, especially the Middle East, and it was fascinating, the stories that you would tell me. And soon after we got married, I think as soon as we arrived back from our honeymoon, it was literally a 5-day turnaround. We had all of our injections and we set sail for Malawi. One of the longest journeys of my life, because we had to go through four countries. It was like to Ethiopia, then Zimbabwe, then somewhere else, and then we finally arrived into Malawi. It was a bit hectic, but it shaped me individually, definitely, because traveling and learning about new cultures, new societal norms, was fascinating. It was eye-opening. But whether or not it changed you and I as a couple is a different thing, because you and I experienced travel together. So the memories that I have are the memories that you have as well, albeit we might have our different perspectives. But we share that, and we're always going to share that. From now up until when we're 80, 90 years old, we're going to look back and say, do you remember when we were in Ethiopia? And this is a true story, everyone. We were walking in these mountains, and suddenly we come across this huge forest. And I turned around to Rajan and I said, can you smell Vicks? I could literally smell Vicks. And we were in a eucalyptus forest. And it was amazing, because I was thinking, when would I ever have gotten the opportunity to go to a eucalyptus forest, or celebrating Diwali in Malawi, and seeing how they celebrate it in full barbecue style. It was amazing. It was so different. Or seeing Holi for the first time, but in India, and appreciating how people celebrate things around the world. So if anything, my Indianness is an amalgamation of the experience that I had at home with my mum, my dad, and my sister, and the different inspirations that I've received from around the world, meeting with different people, meeting presidents. I remember the conversation that we had with the president of Zambia, was it?
Michael
Satter, who said that he had heard where I'd come from, so Orpington, and he called me the bourgeoisie. And I remember the Prime Minister of Ethiopia said a few things about Birmingham.
He did,
didn't he? I think so. These conversations, it's about what you become.
Yeah.
And there's that saying, it's not about what you know, it's about how much you've travelled. And travelling has really opened up my outlook on life, and that's something that I would love to share with our children, and I can't wait for them to be old enough to travel the world, obviously after COVID, and experience these things for themselves, because it's all very well hearing about them or reading about them, but actually going for it.
But I think, do you know what? One thing that has worked really well for us is that we've had this fascination about the planet that we call home, not just the country that we call home, or identifying ourselves purely with flags or colours of a flag. It's been the fact that every country that we've been to, we've been able to adapt, adopt, and integrate, which I think is incredibly important, and that's what's being passed on to our own children now. Lara, for example, she's been to quite a few different places, Macedonia being one, and she came across the Roma community there.
Yeah.
And you think those aspects there is what really shifts and changes you as an individual, and gives you a deep appreciation for life and for other humans, regardless of skin colours, textures, or derivatives thereof. I suppose one thing, coming back to your question, I think because we did do things together in a meaningful way, and it was literally just you and I in those areas, in great times, because we're spending every single moment of every single day together. And I couldn't find anybody better to be with than this you. It's
likewise.
It better be. But because we're there, you get to experience the highs of each other and also the lows of each other. The times where you think, God, shall we give up? What should we do? Is this going to work? Is this idea going to pan out? If not, what's plan B? And we had that even in India, I remember. At one point, just for the audience to know, we're about to live in India. We spent over 9 months there. We'd even set up a business over there, with this guy who shall not be named. An office, bought equipment, and it just didn't feel right. Not India as a destination, but the business partners that we had there. And because, again, we did that together, we were in each other's lives and we're in each other's businesses, so on and so forth. It had a profound impact in the way that we related to each other, that level of trust, level of commitment, but also our insights knowing how far each one of us can go. I remember, again, coming back to that question, you only know each other truly when you're in the darkest of times or in the highest of times, but it's only you two people.
Yeah.
Not kids,
100%,
not parents, not friends, not anyone else, but just you two alone in that almost a white box with a white ceiling, white sides, everything's white, and it's just you two. And those are the profound moments in your life, because that's when you learn what love truly is. Not the ideal notion of it on a movie, or through Bollywood, or the dances that you make me do stupidly in a nice way. But more so in the fact that it is a residual element of who you are as a human being. It comes to your DNA. And it feels great. And it feels good. It feels encompassing. And I think that's what travel's done. It's, for me at least, is giving me a life. Otherwise, where would I be? I'd still be in Birmingham, Handsworth. Not a bad place to be, but I think we kind of grow bigger and stronger from our homes, and we have our mentality to see larger functions of society.
Well, I think, if anything, it's inspired us both to pursue a passion of ours. And the Global Indian series as well that you've launched is...
That we've launched
is fantastic, and it's a great way to celebrate being human and Indianness around the world, because there isn't a single right way of how to be a person of Indian origin. And if anything, we know that because we've gained these new perspectives on life together.
Yeah, it's true. I suppose that comes on to the next part of it, the whole impetus, the purpose, passion and impact that we've always set ourselves out to do, whether it has been the written work, from the big features in the Miami Herald or even in India, or prior to that, when we went on some, Sierra Leone, we had ideas there. Everything that we've done it with a sense of passion and purpose to say, well, what's it really like to be us? And we've taken on the hits as well. I think that's something that people don't realise. As much as they hear about all the travel element, it hasn't always been fun. It's been flipping scary at times, and for me, probably I'm a bit more cavalier in my approach, but for you, I think anything that I go through, you feel the trauma and the tremors tenfold.
Especially when you're going through them at that particular time, be it a carjacking, which we went through, or be it having malaria. At that time when you have malaria, it was scary. It was really scary. Now I'm like, hey, you had malaria. You experienced something amazing.
I don't know how amazing it is.
Not many people
You're more than welcome. I can set you up. I know this great mosquito.
Oh, I know. But that's what it is. It's the experiences that you go through. The good, the bad, the ugly.
So what would you say has been the ugly?
The ugly was when you were in the Caribbean and there were Cat 5 hurricanes, 3 of them back to back, and I lost contact with you for about 36 hours. That experience was ugly for me, just not knowing whether you were okay, not having anybody else to call because of course the phone lines weren't working, because of course the last time we had spoken, your ground floor flat was filling up with water and you were using buckets to chuck it out. And I vividly remember that because we were on a video call and suddenly everything just went dead. And so you really, really start freaking out. And that's an ugly experience. And you wouldn't want anybody to ever go through something like that.
Yeah, that was scary. That was. In hindsight, we laugh about it because.
Well, in hindsight, you can say just like malaria. Hey, I went through Cat 5 hurricanes.
I went through 3 Cat 5 hurricanes.
Exactly.
You know, but we are so fortunate because, as I was saying, it's the first hurricane was heading directly towards us. So just to put it in perspective for everyone, a couple of years ago, obviously there's 3 Cat 5s. One obliterated BVI, the other one hit Miami, I think. The other one hit St. Martin. All 3 were heading into my direction in St. Kitts and Nevis at the time. So we knew we were going to get hit, but they started off as Cat 2s, and you think, okay, Cat 2 is bad, but we can survive. But then it came up to Cat 5, and the first one literally just sworn off slightly to the neighbouring islands, and we survived. And we were lucky. We thought, this is great, wonderful, okay, perfect. And then literally a few days later, another Cat 5 was on the radar. And that one's the one that hit St. Martin, I think, if I remember correctly. St. Martin was 100 miles away from where I was. Not far, put in perspective, and it hit the country hard. And people died, houses were smashed, looting took place after, so it's pretty bad. The last one, which was a Cat 5 again, the third hurricane, was coming up on the Richter scale. I remember as a earthquake. And so I stood outside speaking to Div, and you could see this grey wall coming towards you. There's no birds in the sky, there's no monkeys. It's just silence. You can almost hear your heart in your throat. And you're looking at it thinking, is this it? Like, am I going to make it through this time? You know, and prior to that, obviously, to put it in perspective, you know, I'd gone to Sierra Leone during the Ebola Crisis. That was a couple of years beforehand, you know, and that was fortunate. You know, I got really, really ill. Really lucky that the guy that I was with kind of saved me. He was a driver that we had hired over there. Just forced the door open, took me to a doctor's and everything else. And so, you know, you feel like a cat with 9 lives.
Yeah.
But there's only so many lives that you think that you have. So that one was bad.
But these make for great stories, you know. When we're 80, 90 years old, we can look back and say, do you remember when?
You know, it's like...
And we've still got plenty of time to keep creating those.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's been remarkable. I think another time that was tough, I remember, was the carjacking in Zambia.
Yeah. That was...
Because that shook you up for a while.
Of course. I'm fortunate that growing up in England, I've never ever had anything bad like that happen. And to suddenly go through a carjacking in Africa, it was terrifying, because not only are you worried about yourself, but it's you know, your situation, you're alone, you know, what do you do? And I just remember those 10 gentlemen, those 10 deviant people on top of the car, shaking the car, you know, holding me down at the back, taking the bag. You know, at that point, it's like, just take everything, just leave us. But of course, your James Bond streak came out, and you locked me in the car and you decided to chase after them. You know, very, very brave, because of course you also had a Batmobile with you, didn't you? And I remember just literally being locked in this car and having all the people from the market, because we had just, you know, we had been carjacked just outside a market. Suddenly all these faces, I swear there are about 50 people outside the car just peering in. And it's like, do I cry? Do I smile at them? Like, it was just the most bizarre experience. And yes, I know that we were there. We were fortunate in the sense that we were working there. We had company cars, and we had people that were always there to look out for us on a virtual basis, so to speak. But when you go through something like that, you know, there's a reason why when I lock the car now, I always double check that I've actually locked it. But yeah, those are the sorts of things that just stay with you forever. Just like you've been through malaria now, I don't think that you're ever not going to wear mosquito repellent again.
To be fair, in my defense, we were watching this show on Discovery Channel called Monsters Inside Me. Do you remember?
Yeah.
We were watching it in Blantyre.
Yeah.
In the hotel. I was like, typical guys, and these are guys from England. They come to Malawi. They jump around. They get parasites in them. They get malaria. Man, they don't know what it's like to live in this place. Yeah, a couple of months later, I'm in hospital with parasites.
Exactly, from Lake Malawi.
From Lake Malawi, and we're thinking, this is cool. This is how it works. This is how it rolls. You know, the irony is great. It's. You know, I think it's a great question that we got in from Shivani. And, you know, it's a real nice movement because I think it forces us to almost recollect the power of travel. And to be honest, we've been who we are because we have travelled. I think more so because we've travelled together. Again, you're there. It's just you two. In a room, in a location. And in that location, you have to then rely on each other 100%. And the good, the bad, everything else. But because you're both united in your vision, and you both have this understanding, and you have this want and this need to achieve something there, it makes it work. And then you appreciate each other deeply. I don't know if we would have been the same. I like to say that we would have been. But I don't know if we would have been the same if we hadn't travelled. Because we wouldn't have had those exposures, we wouldn't have had those conversations with remarkable individuals from every echelon of life. We wouldn't have seen those things together, like the eucalyptus forest, listen to the music that was sung and the dance from the time of Moses, apparently.
Yeah.
Or through to eating food and getting sick in India, in Delhi, or nearly setting up a business and thinking at the last moment, whoa.
Being tricked into eating crocodile.
In all fairness,
yeah.
If I didn't do that, you'd never had the chance.
Yeah, but
to
still,
taste the beauty
I felt so like violated that I just eaten crocodile, you know.
Or being tricked into eating foie gras. Is it always good in India? That was interesting. We got Chef Neeraj to thank for that.
Yeah, Chef Neeraj, thank you. But I mean, while we're talking about food and we're talking about India, oh my god,
yeah,
the best culinary experience I think I've ever experienced was definitely in India, and hands down, how much food did we eat by Chef Neeraj?
It was, to be fair, I think he was the resulting factor in our surprisingly weight gained experience of the 9 months of being in India.
Yes,
you know, it's that, but it's shaped us. So to answer your question, should you travel? That's entirely up to you. That's like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, Shivani, you're asking, should you ever travel in the future? And of course, you know, we're all going through this pandemic at the moment, but I want to say that traveling is one of those things that everybody wants to do, but most people don't. They allow sometimes a smallest situation to stop them from going on a life-changing trip. And despite certain circumstances, you just have to make that decision to go to that place that you've always wanted to visit, work in that city that you've always dreamt of, eat in that place that you've always heard about, because there's a good chance it can change your life. And that's why coming on this podcast today, I can safely say that travel has shaped who I am today, because I know for a fact, and I'm sure my mum and my dad and my sister will agree, that I am not that same person that I was prior to travel. I was a lot more diplomatic, actually, and now I have an opinion about everything.
No, do you know what? I think you become more diplomatic with travel.
Oh,
because
really?
there's a lot of stories that I can recount where that subtle art of diplomacy was missing to the detriment of a certain particular minister.
But for the podcast.
The podcast, of course, absolutely. She's just changed in such a dramatic fashion, you know. It's like, I think it's.
What are your top 3 memories from travelling? Your greatest hits of travel.
My greatest hits so far. I'll say it's when me and you. I think the first one is me and you when we landed in Spain, and we were working for a company. And we were going for an interview there, and my dearest, wonderful, witty, entrepreneurial lady that she is, was thinking, can we actually do this? Do we have the ability to do it? And our story in itself is pretty fascinating, and that's reserved for another podcast. But what we went through in 48 hours there to what we ultimately then became, I think that was amazing. That's a travel story because we were there.
Yeah.
We had to experience it.
Yeah.
I think the next one, as crazy as it sounds, it was being in Sierra Leone during that Ebola crisis.
Okay.
It's just the bizarreness of it all. I think equally being threatened by you that you're going to pack a Hamzad suit in my suitcase.
Well, it was
And
Ebola.
Ebola, yeah. And he bought me these masks and gloves that he said you have to wear. I was like, I'm meeting with the head of state and ministers. I can't wear this. He's like, no, you're going to wear it. And if anybody knows my lovely wife, when she looks at you that way, you don't question, And so I'm not going bold. It's just a solar panel to my intelligence or a firm reminder of a thumbprint in my head. Either way, I think that one was a remarkable experience. And the last one is when we went, me, you and Lara, we went to Macedonia. And our daughter, Lara, at the time, how old was she? She was two. Oh my God. So we got on the flight and she's complaining about before the flight, she's complaining about her stomach. And now we're both scared because we're both fairly seasoned travelers at that time, right? And we're both scared because you've got this young, little, beautiful soul that's in our custody as our daughter, right? So she's with us, complaining about, on the flight, we have to call out for the air stewardess. They check there's a doctor available. And I think there's her appendix and everything else. We're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then we arrive in Skopje. Was that it? Yeah, Skopje.
Yeah, Skopje.
We get it. We get to the hotel. We're scared. We're at edge, thinking, what's going to happen? Everyone's warning us. Call the ambulance. Go to the hospital. We thought, my wife's saying, give me a bit of time. She's got an idea. Like, you had an idea. We get there. We give her mint water. 5-10 minutes later, she lets out. Put it this way, it blocks the toilet.
Oh.
And now she's happy as anything, running around. And that whole voyage over there was remarkable because remember we met the first time we ever met the Roma community over there.
Yeah.
And people that just looked like Lara and ourselves. And I had I had meetings over there at the time. That was a there's so many. I think when we went to America together, the first time I ever went to America was with you. Like my wife likes to remind me the first time I ever went to the theatre to become a true gentleman of the arts was through her. I thought that's all well and good. The first time you ever saw a lion outside of a zoo was with me.
That's true. That's true.
And other travel stories. You got me in a roll here. I think, in Malawi, because it was the first country we went to, I got a fondness there when we came across hyenas.
They were everywhere and they were wild.
They were wild in Lilongwe, on the outskirts, and going through when we used to drive from Lilongwe to Blantyre, and just that incredible journey across, and you come across Mozambique. Yeah, there's a lot. Anyway, I hope we answered your question. This is a one-off podcast. Do let us know if you enjoyed it. Like always, if you want to find out more about the Global Indian series, it couldn't be easier. Reach out to us via our Instagram, social media channels and platforms. Also now, if you want to listen to these podcasts, there's a great way to get involved.
Yes.
Simply go to www.globalindianseries.com to our new website.
Yeah.
And there you got the whole repertoire of things. And please share it. If you like what we do get involved as well. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you to all the emails that have come in. Thank you to our great supporters we've got out there. From chutneymusic.com guys, all the way through to now, soon to be our new partners in South Africa. And to all the people that are sharing their experiences. It's been a remarkable voyage and it's only going to get bigger and greater. And with your help and your support, we're building a living encyclopedia of what's it like to be a person of Indian origin and people like us all over the globe. And thank you to my wonderful wife, who's always been there through my crazy journeys
There were loads of those.
Loads of those. Has always supported me along these fascinating tales, and also is the brains behind all the stuff that we do. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Thank you.
I can pay you later for all
No,
that.
thank you very much for having me in our living room, and for the wonderful cup of coffee, and just to let me have an opportunity to share my passion and my enthusiasm for what we've been through and what we're continuing to go through. And I think the Global Indian series is a fantastic way to bring people together and celebrate everybody.
Absolutely.